He laughed when I lost my hair. He joked about my chemo like I was wearing a Halloween costume. And when I found out he was sleeping with my sister, I didn't cry. I got stronger. And one by one, I took back everything they stole from me, but I did it slowly and without saying a single word. My name's Natalie. I was 32 when my life began to fall apart, though I didn't know it yet. I was a middle school English teacher, the kind that kept chocolate in her desk drawer for stressed-out kids. Married to a man named Derek. He was charming, thoughtful, or at least he played it well. A software engineer, always working late, always just one more project. We had been married 2 years, no kids yet, and honestly, I thought I was lucky. And then there was my sister Brianna, just 2 years younger, wild, magnetic, and always 5 steps ahead of her next mistake. But we were close, at least I thought we were, until my diagnosis cracked everything open. I don't remember the moment I found the lump, not exactly. I just remember brushing my fingers across my chest one night in bed under the soft light of the reading lamp and pausing. It felt like a pebble under skin, hard, still, out of place. I told myself it was nothing, maybe hormonal, maybe I'd bumped into something and forgotten. I didn't tell Derek, not because I didn't trust him, not yet, but because I didn't want to worry him. I was still the strong wife, the one who handled things. So I handled it, quietly. I made an appointment, just a routine check. The doctor poked, frowned, scribbled something in her chart, then said we'd do a scan. Just to be safe, she said. I nodded. I was fine. I had to be. 3 days later, I was sitting in a fluorescent-lit office that smelled like antiseptic and printer ink. The doctor's lips were moving, but it felt like the room was underwater. It's stage 2, aggressive but contained, will move quickly. I sat perfectly still, blinked once, and the only thing I could think was, how am I going to tell my students? I just promised them a spring play, Little Women. I was supposed to be Jo. I wasn't supposed to be sick. I went home with a folder in my hands and my future in someone else's words. I dropped my bag on the kitchen counter and stood there staring at the tile for what must have been an hour. Derek wasn't home yet. That night, I didn't eat, didn't cry, didn't scream. I just laid down in the dark and stared at the ceiling, wondering if I was going to die without ever getting the chance to really live. The next morning, I told him. I expected tears, or panic, or at least that he'd pull me into his arms and say something, anything that sounded like, we're going to get through this. Instead, he sipped his coffee and said, so does that mean your hair's going to fall out? I didn't react right away. I thought maybe I misheard. Maybe he was trying to make a joke. I forced a smile, small, bitter. Probably. I guess I'll be joining the Bald is Beautiful Club. He just nodded and got up to grab his keys. All right. Let me know when your appointments are. I'll see what I can move around. That was the first crack. Small, quiet. But once you notice a crack, you can't unsee it. Over the next few weeks, I started treatment. Chemo, the kind that makes your bones feel like hollow glass and your skin smell like metal. My mom cried the first time she saw the IV line in my arm. My sister Brianna brought me a care package of smoothies and fuzzy socks. My students made me a poster that said, Miss Natalie is stronger than cancer. And Derek, he was present, physically, but only in the way a chair is present in a room. There, unmoving, cold. One night, after a particularly rough round of treatment, I was curled up on the bathroom floor, vomiting, crying, shaking so hard I thought my spine would snap. Derek stood in the doorway, watching. I remember looking up at him with tears streaming down my cheeks and whispering, "Can you just hold my hand?" He hesitated. Then he said, "I don't want to get sick, Nat." That was when I stopped asking him for anything. The next day, he bought me a wig, a long chestnut brown one, almost identical to the hair I used to have. He handed it to me like he was offering me a favor. Figured you'd want to keep things normal, he said. Normal? What a ridiculous word. Nothing was normal. Not my body, not my marriage, not the way he started coming home later and later, not the way he flinched every time I took off my scarf. I started seeing how people looked at us in public. Waiters would smile at me with pity and at him with curiosity. One woman even pulled me aside in the grocery store and said, "Sweetheart, if he doesn't want to be seen with you, then maybe he shouldn't be with you at all." I laughed it off, said he was just stressed, but in my chest, a quiet fire began to burn. There was a moment, a turning point. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no slammed doors. It was me in the bathroom mirror staring at my reflection as clumps of hair fell into the sink. Derek was asleep in the next room. I looked at myself, pale thin, trembling, and decided, if this is going to happen to me, I will be the one to control how it happens. I grabbed the clippers, and I shaved every last strand off my head. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen with my bare scalp shining under the light. Derek looked up from his phone and literally jumped. "Jesus, Nat, you could have warned me." I smiled. Not out of amusement, but because for the first time in weeks, I felt powerful. Why? You weren't going to hold my hand anyway. He didn't say anything. He just went back to scrolling, and I went back to surviving. From that point on, I stopped waiting for him to show up emotionally. I stopped hoping he'd change. I focused on the things I could control, my treatment, my students, my own strength. But even then, I still didn't see the full picture. I still believed deep down that he was just overwhelmed, that he was scared, that he'd come around. It never even occurred to me that he had already left, just not physically. But the universe has a cruel way of showing you the truth, and mine came in the form of a phone call, from a number I didn't recognize, from a woman whose voice I didn't know. "Hi, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if I should call, but I saw your husband last weekend, with your sister, at the resort in Da Nang. They looked close, really close. That's where the next chapter began. But that is a story you'll need to sit down for." I hung up the phone and just sat there. My hands were shaking, but not from chemo, from something colder, something sharper, the kind of betrayal that burns hot at first, then freezes into silence. The woman who called said she didn't want to get involved. She said she worked at the resort. She said she recognized Derek from pictures. Said she overheard him call my sister baby. Said Brianna had been wearing his sweatshirt, the same one he wore to my first treatment session. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stared at the coffee cup in front of me until the tea inside turned cold. And then I picked up my phone and opened the location sharing app Derek didn't know I had access to. It was turned off. That had never happened before. He used to joke about how you can track me like Amazon Prime. Now it was gone, blocked, deleted, hidden. That was the second crack, not just in him, but in me, because now I started looking. And once you start looking, you start seeing everything. The lies were never loud. They were quiet, slippery, too clean. Like how he suddenly started using cash. Like how he had a second gym bag he never brought home. Like how I found a new Spotify account on our shared Alexa history, one with playlists titled B's Mix and Late Drive, B as in Brianna. I couldn't confront him, not yet. I was too weak, physically, emotionally. My body was barely holding itself together, so I called my best friend, the one person I trusted more than anyone outside blood. Her name's Tanya. She works in corporate security. She doesn't believe in coincidence or mercy. When I told her what I suspected, she didn't hesitate. Give me 48 hours. Don't say anything, don't change your routine. Just let me dig. And so I waited. 2 days. 2 long, aching days of pretending to eat, pretending to sleep, pretending that the person I had built my life with wasn't already tearing it down from the inside. When Tanya called me back, her voice was low, steady, surgical. It's worse than you thought. She had traced Derek's digital footprint, hotel bookings, Venmo transfers, phone records, deleted messages, even surveillance footage from a pharmacy where he bought Plan B the morning after pill 3 weeks earlier, with Brianna's credit card. I felt my chest collapse. I wasn't just sick. I was being erased, replaced. While I fought for my life, they were building theirs right under my roof. The worst part, I hadn't even told Brianna yet that my prognosis had changed, that the cancer had spread to my lymph nodes, that my chances had dropped by 20%. She hadn't asked. She hadn't called in weeks. I tried to tell myself I was strong, that I could handle this like a woman, like a warrior, like every damn cancer metaphor Pinterest had ever created. But that night, I collapsed in the shower, fully clothed, curled up in the bottom of the tub, the water pounding down on me like punishment, and I cried. Not for me, but for the version of myself that believed love was enough. I needed answers, real ones. So I waited for a night when Derek said he had to work late. I nodded, smiled, even packed him a dinner box like a perfect little housewife. Then I followed him, not in a car. I had Tanya place a tracker on his second phone, the one he didn't know I knew about. He didn't go to work. He didn't go to the gym. He drove to a condo downtown. One I recognized because it used to belong to Brianna's ex, the same one she had sworn she'd never step foot in again. I parked 2 blocks away and walked, slowly, breathing through my rage. And when I turned the corner, I saw the window. The blinds were half open. And there they were, laughing. My sister in his hoodie, my husband pouring wine. And something inside me broke. Not with fire, not with screaming, but with a kind of finality I never knew existed. I didn't confront them that night, no. I went home, sat at the kitchen table, and started making a list. Not a list of revenge, a list of reclaiming. My name was still on the house. Our joint account still received my teacher's pension. I had access to our shared cloud, his passwords, his digital signature. He had underestimated me. He thought being sick made me weak, but it made me focused. By the time he came home, hair tousled, smelling of a perfume I didn't wear, I had already copied every piece of evidence I needed onto 3 USB drives, one for my lawyer, one for Tanya, and one just in case anything ever happened to me. That night, I asked him how work was. He said it was rough. I kissed him on the cheek and told him I loved him. Because sometimes the deadliest blade is the one that smiles before it strikes. I always thought revenge was loud, slamming doors, screaming matches, public shaming. But it turns out the most powerful revenge is done quietly, strategically, and with a calm so terrifying they won't even see it coming. The first call I made wasn't to Derek, and it sure as hell wasn't to Brianna. It was to my lawyer, Hannah, a woman I met through a student's mom who handled divorce and asset protection like it was Olympic sport. When I told her everything, the affair, the betrayal, the health crisis, she didn't flinch. We'll freeze the joint accounts first, quietly, without alerting him. Then we move on to asset separation deed revisions and, she paused, your power of attorney. You'll need someone who isn't him. I remember sitting there in her office, still in my chemo cap, nodding slowly while she rewrote my lifeline by legal line. I walked out of that office feeling lighter, not because I had won, but because I had finally stopped playing defense. That night, I cooked dinner. I made his favorite baked salmon with lemon dill and garlic rice, the same thing I used to make when he got promoted. When he walked in, I smiled. He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. I sat across from him, asked about his day, and listened as he fed me lie after lie with his mouth full of my food. We had a tough client. Big mess at work. I might need to fly to Singapore next week. I nodded. "You should go," I said. "You deserve a break." He smiled. He actually smiled. The next day, I cleaned the house. Not because it was dirty, but because I wanted space. I gathered every photo of us, every frame, every wedding print, every smiling vacation memory, and packed them into a box. I taped it shut and wrote one word on top, in red marker, expired. The second call came that evening. Tanya again. "They're planning a weekend trip," she said. "Brianna booked an Airbnb under her friend's name. You want the address?" "No," I said. "I want the receipt." I collected everything, emails, screenshots, location pings, and then I did something I never thought I'd do. I emailed it to my father. See, my dad hadn't been in the picture much since I turned 20, divorced my mom, remarried, lived in another state. But one thing about him, he hated dishonor, especially when it involved his daughters, especially when one of them was stealing from the other while she was fighting cancer. I wrote the subject line simply, "What your youngest daughter and son-in-law are doing to me." Attached were 17 files. No message, no begging, just truth. He didn't reply with words. He replied with an action. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. "Natalie, your father called a family meeting. What the hell is going on?" I told her to wait until everyone was there, and that I wouldn't be attending. That night, Brianna showed up at my door. No call, no text, no warning, just appeared, wearing a sweatshirt that wasn't hers, eyes wide, almost manic. "You told Dad?" I didn't say a word. She stepped inside without asking. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I didn't mean to hurt you. Derek said he was going to leave you anyway." That's when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he said that to me too. He said I was the problem, that I had changed, that cancer had drained all the joy from our marriage. I looked her in the eye, and I asked her one question. "When did you stop seeing me as your sister?" She didn't answer. She just stared. Frozen. Like the truth had finally caught up. I stepped closer. "I gave you everything," I whispered, "and you took what I didn't offer." Then I handed her a manila folder. Inside, copies of the legal filings, the lawyer's timeline, and a restraining order request drafted but not yet filed. "This is how clean breakups happen, Brie. I don't need to burn your world down. I just need you out of mine." She left without a word. Good. Silence was safer. That weekend, Derek left for his business trip. I knew he wasn't going to Singapore. He was going to the lake house Brianna rented, and I let him go. But not before calling the property owner and telling her I suspected identity fraud had been used in the booking. She canceled it. I watched the notification pop up on Brianna's phone through the synced Google account she forgot to unlink. "Your Airbnb reservation has been canceled. Full refund processed." Then, 10 minutes later, "Where the hell are we going to stay?" From Derek, "I thought you booked it." From Brianna, "I thought you did." I closed the app and poured myself a glass of wine. That Sunday night, I sent the final email. To Derek, subject line, "Re-divorce power of attorney and property division." Inside, a copy of the court documents, a breakdown of assets, and a line at the end that read, "I've survived worse things than you. This will be no different." He didn't respond, not right away, but I could hear the glass shatter in his world from here. People love the word victim. It makes them feel sorry for you without actually doing anything. But I never wanted their pity. I didn't need candles, hashtags, or sympathy texts that said, "You're so strong." I needed space and silence, because that's where the transformation happens, not in the chaos, but in the stillness after it. It had been 3 days since I sent Derek the divorce email. He hadn't responded, but I knew he saw it. Because the morning after his credit card pinged 3 times, 1, an Uber ride, 2, a bar tab in a downtown lounge, 3, a late-night hotel stay for 1, not 2, 1. Brianna was either ghosting him already, or he realized she was never going to choose him for real. She didn't want the full package. She just wanted what I had until it required cleaning up. Meanwhile, I was at home living, not surviving, not hiding, just living. For the first time in months, I walked through my house and felt like I could breathe. I threw out his old hoodie. I donated half the clothes I once wore for his taste. I replaced our wedding photo in the living room with a framed quote that read, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." I started eating again. Not much, but more than before. Food tasted like something other than defeat. And I found myself humming. Little things. Snippets of songs I didn't even know I remembered. I lit candles. I bought flowers for myself. And I turned our bedroom into my room. Clean sheets, new headboard, lavender pillows. No apology. But I didn't stop there, because moving on isn't just emotional. It's legal, it's financial, it's public. And so I made my first social post in over 3 months. Just a photo, me, bald, in a red dress. No caption, just the date. And the location, rebuilding. The comments poured in, hundreds of them. "You look powerful. I don't know what happened, but I'm so proud of you. She's back." Even my old principal shared it on her story with the caption, "When grace becomes the weapon." I got offers from support groups. 3 local nonprofits asked me to speak about emotional resilience during illness. A writer from a local paper emailed to ask if I'd tell my story anonymously. I said no, not because I wasn't ready, but because I didn't want the world to hear my pain. I wanted them to witness my return. The first public sighting came during a community fundraiser. It was held at a botanical garden. Dozens of local families, food trucks, music, laughter. I hadn't planned to go, but Tanya insisted, so I went. Wearing a deep green jumpsuit and a silk headscarf that shimmered like armor. That's when I saw him, Derek, standing across the lawn near the raffle table, wearing the same blazer he wore to our engagement dinner. But this time, there was no ring on his finger, and no one on his arm. He looked at me, I looked back, and I swear in that exact moment he realized it, that I wasn't broken, that I wasn't bitter, that I didn't need closure because I'd already closed the chapter without him. He tried to approach me. I turned and walked away. That was power, not confrontation, not screaming, but the audacity to walk past someone who once made you beg for scraps as if they no longer existed. But Karma's got her own sense of timing, and she doesn't use a megaphone. She uses paper trails. 1 week later, Derek lost his job. I didn't do it, but the HR department received an anonymous packet with time-stamped screenshots, financial inconsistencies, even a company iPad location history showing he was in another city during a key client meeting. The story goes that he was escorted out, politely but firmly. As for Brianna, her apartment lease wasn't renewed. Her name started disappearing from brunch invites and family chats. She texted me once, "I know I messed up. I don't expect forgiveness. But I'm scared. I'm alone." I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, out of preservation. Sometimes healing means choosing not to reopen the wound just because it knocks again. People ask me now, how did you do it? I don't know how to answer that, because it wasn't one thing. It was 1,000 little choices. To wake up, to breathe, to drink water, to sign that paper, to delete that draft text, to walk past him without looking back. That's how you rebuild after being burned to the ground, not with fireworks, with footsteps, one after another, until the fire's behind you and all that's left in your path is light. You don't always need to speak your justice. Sometimes all you have to do is let them live with what they've done. I never wanted revenge in the way movies tell you to want it. No flaming car, no courtroom monologue, no dramatic slap in front of a crowd. What I wanted was peace. What I got was something better, clarity. 3 weeks after Derek lost his job, I received a letter in the mail. Not an email, a physical letter, the kind that comes folded in shame. It was his handwriting. The same slanted curve he used when he wrote me love notes in college. Natalie, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I thought I loved you. I think maybe I still do. But I didn't know how to love someone who was stronger than me. That last line, that was the only honest sentence in the entire letter. He didn't love me. He envied me. Because I survived what he would have crumbled under. Because I chose grace where he chose shortcuts. Because I walked through fire and came out clean, while he set himself ablaze just to feel warm for a while. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked down to the river the next day, took that letter, lit it, and let the ashes fly into the wind. Brianna reached out too, this time not by text. She showed up to one of my speaking events, the first public one I agreed to do. I had been invited to share a short story at a resilience summit. The room was quiet, warm, full of women who had survived things they never spoke of. As I told my story, with no names, just feelings, I saw her, in the back, not crying, just staring, like someone who had read a book with her name in it and wished she'd been a different character. After the talk, she waited outside the doors. I walked past her. She didn't say a word, and neither did I, but she nodded, a small one, the kind you make when you finally realize I'm the villain in someone's survival. Closure is a funny thing. We think it's a conversation, a final chapter, a perfect bow. But really, closure is the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who never deserved your story. I sold the house, not out of spite, but because it had too many ghosts, none of them mine. I donated half the profit to a foundation for women recovering from trauma. The rest went into starting a program for young girls, Survivors Write Back, a creative writing initiative where they could tell their truths out loud and be believed. One of them, a 14-year-old with eyes too tired for her age, handed me a poem she wrote after class. It read, "They thought they buried me, but they didn't know I was a seed." That's what healing feels like. Not revenge, not rebuilding what was, but planting something new where the wound once lived. I still get messages from people who saw the first post. The red dress, the bald head, the quiet smile. They ask me how I made it, and I tell them, by remembering who I was before they made me doubt it. See, pain doesn't build character, it reveals it. And when the storm passed, when the hair grew back, when the court papers were finalized and my name stood alone on the new deed, I didn't feel victorious. I felt whole. Some stories end with a reunion, others with a grave. Mine ended with a mirror. Just me, looking back at the woman who refused to let illness define her, betrayal destroy her, or silence keep her in place. She didn't win with violence. She didn't scream. She just stood back up, and kept walking. And that's what justice looks like. Never mistake someone's silence for weakness. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who never told you what it cost to stay quiet. If this story moved something in you, if you've ever felt alone in betrayal or invisible in your own healing, subscribe to this channel, because here we don't just survive, we reclaim.